Hey everybody, this is Brian here, and we're going to be talking about the final couple entrants on my favorite top 20 wrestlers of all time. This is in no particular order. Like I said in part one, how can you rank the stars? Anyways, let's get into these. As the video cut out due to the timer in the previous video, we were just getting into number 18. And so I'll just start again there since it was like 4 seconds before the timer cut out. I had just begun talking about number 18, which was Eddie Guerrero. I think a good entrant on any favorite wrestlers or top 10 greatest wrestlers list of all time. If I was ranking this, he'd definitely be in the top two or three, probably. Um, but yeah, I think that he legitimized in the same sense as a guy like Pedro Morales, Ron Simmons, Booker T, the idea of a of a Latino champion, of a basically a non-white champion, and frankly, in an era where wrestling had characters like the Iron Sheik. There was a lot of xenophobia. Nikolai Volkov. There's characters basically based on the person being from somewhere else, and that was their big crime. That was why the fans hated them. But Eddie Guerrero, he made the fans love him, even though he was he was not like a vanilla baby face. He was saying lie, cheat, steal. Everything he was saying, he should have been a heel basically based on his morals. But the fans loved Eddie. He had that natural charisma and that natural stage presence. He wasn't just an amazing technical wrestler, which he also was, and he had amazing matches. Pretty much, if you open up a DVD and you see whoever the DVD's about versus Eddie Guerrero, though, like, okay, this DVD's been worth it to buy. This, at least, even if the rest of them suck, this match is going to be awesome. So, a good tip on any DVD collector: if you see Eddie Guerrero's name, it's pretty much a guarantee that the match is going to kick ass, regardless of even if they pick some match from Velocity instead of the actual magnum opus that the two had in their feud, which they often do on WWE DVDs. I've noticed is they'll pick a feud, but they'll pick the wrong match from the feud. They'll pick like the C match instead of the A match, in terms of what everyone remembers. Um, Regardless of all of that, Eddie Guerrero, he died way before his time. I think that did a lot of mental damage to him, why he didn't recover from, and that might have contributed to his tragedy, which is completely arguable, of course, and probably a controversial opinion. But regardless, he died way too soon. WWE exploited that for storyline content, which they've been known to do. Look at what they did with Ric Flair's son's passing due to, I think, an overdose. Anyways, they're very insensitive to their performers' real lives. And like I was saying at the very end of the last video, they kind of tried to pole vault the Chavo versus Ray feud off of the legacy of Eddie, and they tried to use his name basically for heat, which I think is really cheap. And Eddie probably would have wanted them to use him to further wrestling, to further the legacy of wrestling even after he was gone. And it seems like from what I've seen people say about him, what I've read, from what I've seen in his matches, and just heard about the guy, it really seems like he was one of those people who wrestling was Eddie Guerrero. He wasn't just a member of an amazing wrestling family. He wasn't just one of the best technical wrestlers of his generation. He also opened the door culturally in a time when frankly, it was still really, really, I think, um, really racist, and especially in WWE. And there wasn't a black champion until the early 90s. Look back. Uh, Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Randy Savage. There's something in common. All these, and it's very easy to see. But Eddie Guerrero opened the door for a legitimate Latino world champion, regardless of what WWE tried to do with his name being a little bit cringy now to look back on. Eddie Guerrero really opened a lot of doors. Without him, we might not have seen future WWE mainstays like Rey Mysterio, Chavo Guerrero. We might not have seen the door open for success of of stars such as Alberto Del Rio, and I know his push wasn't what a lot of people hoped it would be. But the point is that there wasn't like some ceiling he had to break through due to just the color of his skin. And I think that Eddie is kind of like, in terms of wrestling, I think he's a real hero in terms of door opening, at least in terms of American wrestling. And he also, I think, popularized the frog splash. I know he wasn't the guy who invented it, but I think that Eddie Guerrero is the reason that the frog splash is a common finisher in wrestling today. Number 19 on here. Now, I know that John Cena is booed a lot. It's a popular opinion to bash him. It's a hipster opinion to wear a Cena t-shirt and hold a sign when you're a 28-year-old dude who doesn't have a girlfriend. Anyways, though, I know that that it's divided, and that's the point. That's what he draws his heat on, is getting a reaction. And for a long time, I disliked Cena. I always was on the side that booed him as a kid growing up. And watching wrestling when I was older, I kind of transitioned from just disliking his character, thinking the rap character was tired. Like, all right, we're in the 2000s. Why not go on to something else that's popular instead of just sticking with, the 90s, ripping off Eminem and stuff. But after looking back, especially on his promo work, Cena really is one of the best talkers of his generation. He's certainly one of the most accomplished champions of all time, and he's been a face of the company, especially in years of sinking business. So not only is he really the captain of their ship behind people like Vince and Triple H, but he really is, like they say on TV, the face of the company. But Cena's not just that. I know his work in the ring lags a little bit, and he wrestles a slower style, sorry, especially in his older years. And he's become a little bit part time. But it's especially his mic work. The range of emotion, like the believability, especially a couple years ago when he was feuding with The Rock. I think that Cena is able to really, really play up WWE's desire to blur the lines between a heel and a face, and that he's beloved by the children and by people who see his verbal skills, but he's also hated by people who rightfully so think that he's stale and he's mediocre, overrated, and he buries people. You know, um, I understand both opinions, but I also see what Cena has contributed on the mic. That he's really not just of his generation, because he feuded directly with guys like The Rock. So we have a comparison here. I'm not just talking about things 10 years apart. He really is one of the best talkers of all time, and especially of the modern sports entertainment era. He's definitely got to be the best talker to debut after the Attitude Era was already over. I mean, there's guys who are arguably better than him who had their career carry over from before the Attitude Era began and just somehow endured. Anyways, regardless, Cena, if you really look at his work talking, he's carried on some feuds with some really amazing opponents and not just been buoyed by his opponent's talent. He's actually really, if you, it's amazing he didn't leave like The Rock did and become a Hollywood actor. Instead of these straight to DVD things and appearing as like a fake Marine in these charity ads. um, Cena Cena's a little bit of he has his ups and downs. If this was ranked, I would probably put him towards the bottom of the top 20. But he really has been the face of the company for at least the past probably since 2006, so the past 13 years. So we're going on 15 years now. And I think if they could actually use, if especially since he's part time now, use his name to elevate guys like Kevin Owens, to elevate guys like Seth Rollins beyond just transitional champions and guys who hold the belt and talk every week without really saying anything that means anything long term. Just inconsequential, forgettable, boring champions. So you don't want guys to be like that. You don't want Cena to just uh, attitude adjustment them after a few crappy matches at the pay-per-views, just for a pop, and then what the guys who are actually there every night instead of just for a pay-per-view, the guys who are actually there for the poor people who are watching on basic cable who don't have WWE Network, what instantly all of that's irrelevant, and it's just, he's buried the guys who are actually going to be there, whereas he's old now. He's can't accept. He has to keep coming back. Either they want something safe or he's got a big ego. I'm not behind the scenes. I don't know. But either way, regardless of all the controversy and divided opinions, and regardless of some negative things I might have said about him, John Cena is really the best talker of that's debuted after the Attitude Era, at least in WWE. He's one of the best talkers of all time. I mean, he's given some great interviews, both, when he was coming up, he had surprising charisma, and I think that's how he's kept afloat, with all of these sharks after him in really a world that's booed him for a very long time now. I mean, sometimes there's alternating chants, but I think that really his charisma and his promos are why that guy has endured and he's kept afloat in his career. Not just kept afloat, obviously, but become um, accomplished champions of all time. Up there with guys like Ric Flair, Triple H, Undertaker, Shawn Michaels. Yeah, you gotta mention Cena there, unfortunately. No, but he is a favorite. His talking is great, and his matches frequently don't live up to the build-up. I think a little bit. But I do think that if they incorporated him in a non-wrestling role, but at the same time didn't just do it to lead up to some disappointing WrestleMania match versus a current star, if they actually used him as an on-screen character that appeared regularly, made use of his charisma, but also to promote people who are actually currently, modernly, 2019 relevant. If they used his name in the right way, I think that his charisma and his talking skills would not necessarily lead the fans to boo him as a face. Anyways, though, the guy's great in some ways. If you really type some of his promos versus Roman Reigns, some of the things where he and The Rock look like they legitimately want to punch each other in the face, and it's great when you can't tell if it's real or not. That line of suspension, that's what wrestling's about, and they achieve something there, whether they meant to or not. Um, but Cena, that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. I know he's got one of the crappiest finishers of all time, and the STFU looks like a 90-year-old woman could get out of it. But at the same time, I think that for all of the controversial opinions about him, not only has Cena been an ambassador for the company, but he's also, I think that he's able to probably talk better than anybody that WWE's had, at least for a regular basis, not just a special couple month storyline. Um, he's been one of the best regular talkers they've had in a really long time. Uh, let's get on to the final person in this list, and just one other thing to say about Cena before I move on is that since WWE really appears to be pushing to top bill the entertainment aspect of their product, and they're hesitant to even speak the word wrestling, it's like giving a giant hug to a naked leper or something. But anyways, especially since WWE's evolved in the way it has, Cena's skills have become, like it or not, even more relevant today. Number 20 on here, one of the most mythical characters in more ways than one of all time, The Undertaker. Now, he's extended his career for many years by making basically a yearly feud at WrestleMania. He finally got the streak broken, and I'm not sure if that was the right decision, especially against a guy who's not, a guy like Lesnar, who's not going to be like 10 years down the road a mainstay of the company and is only coming for a couple of years because WWE offered him a huge like contract that he was probably too smart to spit on, and too stupid to turn down. Um, Anyways, enough of my bashing Lesnar. Probably got my words backwards there. Anyways, um, I don't think they should have ended the streak personally, especially not against a guy who, frankly, they just fed 30 years of history to someone who's not really even devoted to wrestling. They've shown that before in 2003. Um, but The Undertaker is somebody who's been devoted to wrestling for a very long time. Mark Calloway, The Undertaker, you know, he's made it work. Whether he was a cartoony zombie with purple boots, whether he was all of a sudden a Hell's Angel style biker with spiky hair, um, whether he was appearing, in a flash of light every year to battle whoever was booked at the top, uh, I think that he's put on some of the best matches in WrestleMania history in this last couple year period. Maybe working part time is better for the older person's body. Maybe that's why he's been able to work such great matches. I guess that's what you know worked for Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair for so long. Regardless, though, Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels, in fact, is such a fantastic match. And Undertaker's even put on really great matches with people like Cena or Triple H. And these are modern things I'm talking about. I'm not talking about like in his prime. I'm saying that this guy has really endured beyond the cartoony mid 90s arriving in the ring with Paul Bearer in a casket and shit beyond the character he was ever meant to be um, in a time of comic book characters and villains and stuff. Undertaker somehow he's made this zombie persona work. It's not really believable anymore. Kind of like the whole thing with Sabu. After a while, the fans knew he wasn't really Arabian. He was obviously an American guy that spoke English and stuff. But the Undertaker did the same thing with the zombie thing. It's like obviously nobody believed he was a zombie ever, but everybody loves him, and he carries almost a godlike clout, I think, in the business. A reverence. When do you ever hear anybody criticizing or tearing down Undertaker? Um, I think that he's one of those kind of stone statues, one of those pillars of a wrestler. He's also really entertaining. Seeing him every year, it's usually one of the highlights of WrestleMania. It's usually a great match. I mean, regardless of his age, he might be one of those guys like Funk who ends up just doing this, or Flair who ends up doing this until he's really old and just fucking won't leave, sometimes to his own body's detriment. Um, Regardless, we've now approached number 20, and that's the end here. Thank you guys for watching this. This has been a multi-part video. I'm happy we've gotten to get very in-depth, talk about some aspects of wrestling history and people's careers, a little bit of politics in the wrestling business. Um, Thank you guys for watching this series. I know there's been some opinions on here and some names mentioned that may be very controversial. I know may be some people in here that you expected to see that maybe we're just a little bit before my time. I'm not sure. Keep in mind, I'm 25, so yeah. Regardless of all of that, these are my favorites. I think they all deserve to be here, and regardless of this being a favorites or best of list, I think these guys all are first ballot Hall of Famers. Um, yeah, so I love you guys because you're you, and peace out. Have a great Christmas, and thank you for watching.